welcome back again to my channel. My name is Achibola. You're welcome to Achieve Sims channel where I teach you how to make exciting dresses and outfits. And to my new subscribers, you're very much welcome. The old and existing ones, you're very much welcome. How are you all doing? So today I'm going to be teaching you how to make the chiffon blouse previously shown in this video, and I have my pattern already made. I did not draft a new pattern for this. I'll be putting a link on how to draft this pattern. It's just one of the patterns we use for our button down shirts in my previous videos. I'll be dropping the link in the description box for you to watch if you haven't. And right now I'm just folding. I folded my pattern along the waistline because this style of blouse is actually like a half cut with a peplum attached to it, but the buttonhole is still there. So right now I'm just going to put in my, after pinning my pattern to my fabric folded, I'll be adding 1 inch to the side and ½ inch to the armhole, the uh, shoulder line and the neckline for my sewing allowance. As you can see here, I'm just connecting the allowances to themselves before I cut it, and I'm just pinning my pattern in place on my fabric because this fabric it's quite tricky to use, but if you have your pins it will make your life easy. So now, as you can see, still pinning my pattern to my fabric. I'm going ahead to cut it out this way, and I also added ½ inch sewing allowance to the bottom of my um, front pattern here for stitching it to my peplum, and here I am cutting it out carefully. So after cutting it out, I'm going to be slitting my front pattern into two to make it um, two instead of just a piece, because this is a button down peplum top, as you can see me, and I'm pinning it. So I'll still be using the same pattern for my uh, back, but here I am folding in the bottom placket on my pattern, and I will be folding my fabric into two this way. And here I am, you can see the way I am carefully aligning my fabric. I'm just trying to maximize the fabric. Guys, I've had this fabric for more than 5 years and I couldn't figure out what to do with it, and eventually the idea popped in my head recently, so I decided to make use of it, and I'm glad that it came out beautiful. So right here I am pinning the pattern to my folded fabric to cut out the back piece of my top. So watch carefully where I'm going to be placing my tape measure to add my ½ inch allowance for my back armhole, because it is different from that of the front armhole. And for the neckline of the back, I'm just going upward from the pattern by about 2 inches, because the back neckline is higher than that of the front. So after marking that out, I'm just going to be curving it this way, like this, and I'll also be adding sewing allowance to the waistline for the back pattern as well, like this. And after doing that, I'll also be adding sewing allowance to the side of my pattern. I'm just trying to tuck it in properly so that I'll be able to draft the allowance properly. And here I am drawing the lines out, and after doing that I'll be adding sewing allowance for the shoulder line. There I made use of ½ inch, and I'll also be going upward by ½ inch to mark on my neckline for sewing allowance as well. Then I'll be connecting these points together this way. After doing that, I'll be cutting out my fabric for the back side of my top this way with my scissors carefully. So after that is done, I went ahead to fold my fabric into two this way to cut out the sleeves. Guys, we'll be using this sleeve pattern to manipulate the kind of sleeves we'll be using for this top. And as you can see here, I've properly folded my fabric like I said, and I have placed my pattern sleeve on it, on the folded area there, and I'll be adding extra inches to the length and to the width of my sleeve to achieve the style we want. I made my sleeve longer than usual because I'll be ruching it, and around that elbow area I will be adding 0.5 to the side, and I'll be extending it from that elbow area outward like this in order to give it a puffy look. So you can see the way I manipulated this sleeve. I added 0.5 inch as my sewing allowance on the side, and I extended it outward like an A shape. So I'm going to be cutting it out this way. I'll be cutting the back curve first. Then after I'm done cutting the other part of the sleeve, I'll cut out my front curve before I join it to the bodies of my top. So let's go straight into the sewing part of this video. And right now you can see me, I'm placing my front pieces of fabric on the back side, right sides facing themselves, and make sure that you align them properly. You can pin them if you want, and you're going to be sewing the shoulders. After sewing the shoulders, I just folded my back piece into two like this, and from that fold I'll be taking half of my body circumference measurement. I've taken half of my bust circumference, and I've also taken my half of my waist circumference. So I'll be connecting those points together like this, and you can see it's reflected on the other side of my side seam. So right now I will just be placing the front like this, and I'll be stitching along the sides. After doing that, I'll be measuring the total waist circumference of the top this way, and I'll be using that measurement to calculate the waist circumference for my peplum. So this is the fabric I'll be using for my peplum. It's called a silk fabric. It's a soft silk fabric, and this is in color red, and this is the remnants of it from a project I used it for in the past. So this is how you'll be folding it. You'll be folding it first this way, over this way, then you fold it again this way. So after doing that, I will be putting in the waist circumference that I got from this formula. You will be dividing that waist measurement you got by 6.28, and I will be putting that division along from that edge like this to create a semicircle all around this way, and I'll be connecting the points together. So after doing that, I'll be putting the length of my peplum from the arc measurement there. So I'm going to be putting the total length of my peplum all around this way. And after doing that, I'll be connecting those points together to create the curve of the peplum. And then I'm going to use my fabric scissors to cut it out this way. Then while cutting, I'll be adding half an inch allowance to the hem of the peplum this way for sewing allowance, hemming allowance. Then as well, I'll be adding half an inch to the top of the arc this way for sewing allowance, and then I'll be opening one of the folds like this in order for the peplum to be able to open up this way. Now I'm going to take the top of my blouse and my peplum, and I'll be attaching it along the waistline this way using my pins to hold them in place before stitching them with my machine. So guys, after that is done, you're going to use your tape measure to measure the total length of your peplum this way from the top to the bottom in order to be able to create the base of the placket. And when I mean base, it's because the materials used for this style is a very light material, and if you put your buttonholes and buttons on it, it will not have a kind of firmness to it. So this is going to be like the foundation of the for the placket to be able to stand properly on the blouse. So I've measured the length out of what I took, and I'm just cutting off the excesses. And right now I'm going to be slitting it into two this way. I use the total length by about 3 inches or 2.5 inches. You can make yours thinner depending on the size of placket you'll be using. So right now I'm going to be measuring the cuff of the blouse. You see me measuring my wrist with a little bit of allowance there. So I folded my fabric this way. I used about 3 inches by the total measurement of my wrist plus sewing allowance on the side and the top. So if your your total measurement for your wrist circumference is 8 inches, you're going to be adding extra 1 inch, and the height I used about 3 inches on fold plus half inch for 1 inch for sewing allowance. Then I'll be cutting it out this way, and I'll also be interfacing the cuff of the shirt this way. So I'll be cutting another one, and I'll be interfacing one side of it, so you can see the way I'm placing it on my wrist to make sure that it's actually better, it actually fits right. So after doing that, I will be cutting my color as well. This pattern is from our previous pattern videos that I created for a shirt. So you can see that you can actually reuse your patterns, you can manipulate it, you can increase the size, you can reduce the size depending on the type of body size you are making it for. So instead of drafting another pattern for collar or for sleeve or for bodies, I just made use of the old patterns I already have to save me the stress and wasting of paper. So I'm just cutting out my collar stand and my collar. I added half inch all round for sewing allowance because the patterns did not come with sewing allowances. So I'm just going to cut them out this way. I'll be cutting 2 for each pattern on a fold, and I'll be interfacing one part of it. So when that is done, you can see that I have interfaced the placket stand, and right now I want my placket stand to be visible outside the blouse. So I'm going to be putting my right side of my placket to the wrong side of my blouse. I'll be pinning it this way, and I'll be stitching along the edge using my sewing allowance. So I'll be pinning it properly, making sure that they are aligned together. Then I'll be stitching along this edge this way, and I'll be flipping it out this way. I'm going to also top stitch it before turning it, flipping it out towards the right side of the blouse. Then I will go ahead to sew down the edge of it on top of the blouse. So I'm just going to show you here with my machine. So guys, meet my humble machine here, and here we go. I'm going to be stitching it using my sewing allowance carefully. So I want to use this period to appreciate my subscribers, both old and new, and the new viewers. Thank you so much for viewing and for subscribing thus far. And if you are just a viewer, you are yet to subscribe, kindly subscribe to this channel, because after this video, guys, I'm going to be dropping like back-to-back videos on so many projects I've made. The only issue I have is how to balance the reality with content making. I surely video all that I do, but the editing is just the most stressful part, and I'm yet to figure out how to balance it. But I promise, guys, I've made so many videos. So if you want to learn new things, fun videos, kindly subscribe, hit on that notification bell beside your subscription button, and you're not going to regret it. So after that is being done, after stitching, I'm just trimming off the excesses off, yes, to make it less, not bulky. And here I am trimming it off. So guys, you have to be careful here, so you will not have to cut, so you don't have to cut the your clothes. So after that is done, I'm going to be stop stitching it this way, making sure that the seam just created is facing towards the chiffon, and make sure that you are top stitching properly on the chiffon part. So after top stitching, I'm going to be using my pins to hold the placket base in place this way, so that when I'm finally stitching the placket to the front of the blouse, it's not going to move in different positions, it's going to be in one place. So after that, I have folded the other round edge like this on the front of the blouse, and I'm going to run a straight stitch at the edge, very close to the edge of the placket base this way. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to couple the collar together. You can see that I interfaced one part of the collar and I left the other one as it is. So I'm going to sew from the side using my sewing allowance towards the top of the collar like this. When I get to the edge, I'll raise my foot and continue sewing the top this way using my sewing allowance. Then I'm going to raise my foot again and I'm going to sew it out this way. So after doing that, I will turn it in right side in out, and iron with also notch the middle of it. So after notching the middle of it, I'm going to sandwich my collar, main collar, in between the collar stand at the top area of the collar stand. I hope you understand the way I place it. I place the bottom of my main collar on the top area of my collar stand, and I'm using my pins to hold them in place. Then I will be sewing all around, but before sewing I would raise up the bottom edge of the collar stand on both sides and stitch all through. After doing that, here I am coupling my collar to my blouse neckline. So the part at which I did not fold upward is the one I'll be attaching to my neckline using my sewing allowance carefully. And after doing that, I'll be flipping my seam inside, and I'll be using that folded part of the collar to cover in the raw edges, and I'm going to stitch all through. So for the cuff area of my sleeve, I will be sewing it this way from the side. I interfaced one part of it, and I will be sewing both sides together, and I'll be turning it right side out. So here I am just trying to fix it, check if it's comfortable on my wrist, which it was. So the next thing you'll be doing now is to run a gathering stitch at the bottom hem of the sleeves for both sleeves. And before gathering it, you're going to be cutting out the front curve armhole, which I did by folding in my back armhole on the pattern and placing the pattern at the midsection of my sleeves this way. And I will be cutting the front armhole out, making sure that I leave about 0.5 inch for sewing allowance, and I also notch that area so that there will not be any form of confusion when I'm about to join the sleeve to the bodice. So I've gathered the hem of my sleeve to the size of my cuff, and I went ahead to fold my sleeve into two and went upward by from the hem by 3 inches to create a slit, an opening for my hand to pass through when I'm wearing the garment. Now I'm just putting my round arm circumference divided by 2 measurements, and I extended it outward since it's a trumpet sleeve. So I'll be running a stitch and I'll to stop at that 3 inches slit area. So I went ahead to attach my sleeve to my bodies and also my cuff to the hem of the sleeve, which I could not find the video, the last part of this video. I'm so sorry. And I also tacked the ruche at that area there. And that will be all, guys, for this tutorial. Thank you for watching this far. Thank you for liking, for subscribing. See you in my next tutorial. Bye.